Hello there, my friends. My name is Cellrock, and today we're doing something a little bit different. One thing I've noticed when I look at videos and pictures of people's terrain is that a lot of the buildings, a lot of the ruins from Mordheim will seem a bit samey. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. I applaud anyone who makes their own terrain, but I know for myself, I would find it kind of boring if I made a bunch of different buildings and ruins and they were all basically the same. I need variety and a bit of chaos to keep my rat brain functioning. And in a game like Mordheim, such a deep amount of lore and stories and art behind it, it seems a shame when you could have so much more with just a little inspiration. So when it comes to finding inspiration, usually inspiration isn't going to find you. It's a quest that you have to go in search of. All you need to know is where to look, where to find the ideas and inspiration, because ideas don't just appear out of thin air. We're all a product of our environment and our experiences, and the things that we've been exposed to influence the ideas we have, especially as creative kinds of people, especially as artists. I know myself personally, a lot of my work has been influenced by a huge variety of sources and different artists. But for the most part, you have to find inspiration. And so I thought the best way to discuss this would be to talk about where I find inspiration. I find my inspiration from a couple different sources. The Mordheim Facebook group has around 30,000 members from around the world, and many people sharing the things that they make. And there are some incredibly creative and talented people in that group. I strongly recommend to anyone interested in making any kind of tabletop terrain, especially fantasy terrain, to join the group, if nothing else than just to see what other people are doing. There's some other Facebook groups that I like as well for hobby and game and terrain making things. Super Cheap Wargaming is one that I'm very fond of, because like me, the whole big message that they have is about accessibility and that cost shouldn't be a barrier to people having cool and fun things to play with. And there are many other Facebook groups for games and terrain making and building and crafting and things like that. And if this is something you're interested in, I strongly encourage you to take a look at those yourself. Explore, do a dive. I can always talk about the groups more in depth and each specific one and why I like them. Recently, the biggest place I draw inspiration is from the original Mordheim boxed game. In particular, the terrain that came with the game. The cardboard Mordheim ruins that I'm working on editing my video of in particular, show people how I make my ruins out of cardboard, is very heavily influenced by the original Mordheim ruins that came in the boxed game from 1999. A 25-year-old game with a little cardstock terrain that still influences what people like myself are making today. As a young elf sometime in the 1900s, I started my journey crafting terrain and playing miniature games, and I've never looked back. I was fortunate enough to own the original Mordheim game, and it came with an incredible rulebook filled with art and stories and more depth and flavor to it than anything I had ever read beforehand. There was so much to Mordheim that just leapt out at me and took hold of me, and it still has that grasp on me, which is a big part of why I'm still making these videos today, because I love the game and I want to share the kinds of things you can make for it. As a young elf, I didn't have much talent and certainly no tools or materials or knowledge of how to make things look really cool, but I still found my inspiration in the same places I do now. The Mordheim rulebook itself is truly a work of art. Not just the rules, the scenarios, but the stories, the lore, the artwork within it. And so while Mordheim is a great game in itself, 2 or more players take their little bands of warriors and fight for treasure in a ruined medieval city, combining the genres of fantasy and post-apocalypse. One of the best parts of Mordheim happens after the battles are done, where injuries, experience, and exploration all take place, and rolls are made for each of those things depending on what happened in the battle, what decisions you made, what moves you made, how your warriors succeeded and failed. The Mordheim exploration chart in particular has a wealth of information about the game, the city, the place it was before and after it met its end. There are 30 separate entries on the Mordheim exploration chart, depending on if a person rolls multiples of a single number. I feel like the Mordheim exploration chart is the perfect place to start. So, why not make some terrain based on the Mordheim exploration chart? The well is the first result on the Mordheim exploration chart, and one that, it seems, no matter how many heroes I send down into it to try and retrieve a piece of weird stone, they always fail. The well is still a work in progress, but it's almost just past the detail stage. I need to ruin its roof a little bit to make it a little more accessible, a little more playable, but I feel like it's turning out. As part of making my cardboard Mordheim ruins, I decided to make the shop result from the Mordheim exploration chart as well. I wanted it to be a garish color, so I went with an orange, and I didn't want it to look just like another ruined building. I wanted it to feel more like a shop. So I took inspiration in particular from the shops in the video game Skyrim, with all their shelves and tables and such, and I made a bunch of miniature furniture that I actually made a little video about, and then I ruined them all up and put them here in the shop. I think it works pretty well for a shop. It's got the burn damage, the ruined treasure chest, and broken shelves and tables. This one shelf that your little guys can climb up as stairs or a ladder. And I feel like it turned out pretty good. Here's my overturned cart. Sort of a ruined stagecoach that carried some noble throughout the streets of Mordheim and then met its end. Ruined hovels where the poor and less fortunate of Mordheim dwelt, that I have interpreted as a burnt down shack. These were the first pieces where I actually developed my technique for making the wood look all burnt, with just a simple black dry brush followed by a white or off-white dry brush. You may notice this bears a lot of resemblance to the very first video I made on this channel about making a shack out of cardboard. Here's the ruined version with a full interior. That's all I've got so far for the Mordheim exploration chart terrain. This is sort of the introduction video I have for you on terrain inspiration and where to find inspiration. If you'd like to share any of where you find inspiration, I'd love to hear about it in the comments, and I feel like a lot of other viewers would too. Feel free to share that with everyone, and maybe we'll even have a little discussion about it in the comments. I do have specific build videos coming up for each of my terrain pieces that I mentioned in this and more. And this is the first, I think, in a series on finding inspiration, because there are a lot of other places that I find inspiration from. This is just the first one that I wanted to share from my experiences because I feel like it's a great starting point. Let me know which of the pieces you like the most and would like to see more of and why. As of right now, I don't have one that I'm planning on doing before the others, so I'd like to know which one people would like to see the most. I'd love to hear what you think, my friends. Anyway, thank you for watching, my friends. Take care until next time. The makeup? What makeup?